Welcome to Royal Haunts and Part 1 of the Plantagenets. England suffered the hardships of civil war through to the end of Norman rule, when on King Stephen's death in 1154, Henry II became the first Plantagenet king, a dynasty that ruled for over 250 years. During Stephen's reign, things had lapsed, with crimes going unpunished, especially for the titled, and with castles being built without permission. These had to be destroyed, while Henry fortified others, such as Nottingham Castle, where he spent some time, giving him the opportunity to hunt in Sherwood Forest. It is at Nottingham Castle where Henry II still pays the occasional haunting visit. There is also a story connected with Henry that's gone down in legend, that of Rosamund Clifford, or the Fair Rosamund, for her beauty was so great. The story goes that Henry was so besotted with Rosamund that he kept her in a maze in which only he knew the way. His wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, became so jealous that she attached a silk thread to Henry so she could follow, and there poisoned or stabbed Rosamund to death. In truth, Rosamund died of natural causes, possibly from childbirth. By this time the affair was common knowledge, with Henry having installed Rosamund at Woodstock Palace, now the site of Blenheim Palace. Rosamund was taken to Godstow Nunnery to be tended by the nuns, and that is where she died. A white lady that haunts the ruins is thought to be Rosamund. She is also said to haunt the Trout Inn, as some of the stone was pilfered in building the public house. With Henry's two eldest sons dying, he was left with Richard and John. It was a family easily stirred, and feuding was the norm. Richard had fought his father once before and backed down, but a second time Henry was injured, dying 2 days later. Richard did not hurry to England and lay down his claim as others, and it was a few months later that he was crowned at Westminster Abbey. Having been imprisoned for the past 15 years by his father, Richard's mother was released, and she spent the majority of Richard's reign acting as regent, dying almost 5 years into John's reign. Richard was too busy with the Crusades and overseeing his domains in what is now France that he spent little time in England, and even less with his wife, Princess Berengaria, that the marriage may not even have been consummated. Leaving no children to succeed him, his brother John, who had attempted to usurp the throne in Richard's absence, finally got the power he hungered. However, it wasn't an easy transition, as Richard had originally named his older brother Geoffrey's son, Arthur of Brittany, as successor, and there were those who saw Arthur as the rightful claimant. But John was not going to be so easily ousted, and Arthur disappeared in 1203. Some say John did the deed himself, killing the young man and throwing the body into the River Seine. One thing is sure, Arthur was never seen again, alive or dead. Arthur's sister Eleanor was also seen as a threat. If not to England, there was Brittany, which was her rightful inheritance through her mother. But Eleanor was captured and imprisoned at Corfe Castle, and that is where she remained until her death in 1241. Unless Eleanor was beheaded, the ghost that haunts the ruins is that of a headless woman. Although tales of Robin Hood can date back long before King John was born, the two will always be associated. There are theories that outlaws seeking sanctuary in the forests had a leader that was given the name Robin Hood to hide their identity. So little John, who is buried in the churchyard at Athersage in Derbyshire, and Will Scarlet at Blidworth in Nottinghamshire, could well have existed with a leader of the same name. There is little proof of the existence of Robin Hood, though the major oak, being preserved as best as possible, stands as a monument to him. The 1,000-year-old tree could well have been used by many an outlaw or highwayman, and was certainly used by poachers. The tales of Robin Hood being a foe against Prince John in an attempt to seize a crown is no more than a fanciful imagination. Robin Hood is said to haunt the forest, and there are certainly some strange reports of paranormal phenomena. More a paranormal event relating to John must have shook him fairly badly. Like his brother Richard, John squeezed money from his subjects to fund his wars. When a group of monks made a plea in person to be exempt from these excessive taxes, John had them thrown into the dungeon with orders that they be crushed to death by horses. That night John had a dream. or rather a nightmare, in which he was flogged for his cruelty, only to wake and find his body had the marks of that flogging. Seeing this as an omen, John not only released the monks, but gave them land at Beaulieu, with permission to build an abbey. This continued to be a place of activity up to the dissolution of the monasteries. The ruins of Beaulieu are now said to be haunted, as visitors have reported hearing the strains of chanting as of disembodied monks. John died at Newark Castle, and there are varying stories as to how he came about his demise. Some think he was poisoned, while others that he died from dysentery, a common ailment in those times. John's death left a 9-year-old son, Henry, to succeed him, but there was always someone ready to act as regent, and Henry III didn't take up his reign until the age of 20, that same year marrying Eleanor of Provence. With internal wrangling almost leading to civil war, after 56 years, it's not surprising that in the latter end of his reign, Henry gave up all but the crown to his eldest son Edward. Edward I became king at the age of 33 and was already married to Eleanor of Castile, the couple having 16 children in all. Edward gained the nickname Hammer of the Scots, as most of his reign was taken up in an attempt to bring Scotland under English rule, as was Wales. Edward was the first monarch to bestow the title Prince of Wales to his son and heir, a tradition that continues to this day, with a successor to the throne holding the title. Edward was on his way to battle the Scots one more time when he died en route, leaving a son who preferred leisurely pursuits to fighting. And those are the first 5 kings of the House of Plantagenet.